How's it going? Strife here, and this is the walkthrough for the Shaman Fractal. So overall this fractal is probably a middle difficulty fractal in my opinion. If you have reflex, it's not too bad, but it can get a bit harder if you are in a party with very little or no reflex, mainly for the last boss. Since we do run a 2 Guardian setup in fractals, this fractal for us personally isn't too bad, and I don't mind getting it usually. But as you can see, to start out, what I did is we just ran and jumped on top of this hill, and we are just pulling the Grauls and using this corner to LOS them to group them up for cleave damage. Now you still do want some reflex here because some of the mobs are ranged mobs, so it helps negate some of their damage. The other thing that you see me casting is stability because some of the mobs do knock you back as well. But besides that, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just use melee weapons, use any protects or defensive buffs, and then reflex if you do have them. So this event will go on for a little bit. You can see the progress in the top right corner. And the next wave of Grawl spawns after you kill most of the previous wave. So at this point you'll see there are 2 Grawls over there, but the next wave isn't spawning yet. So once in a while this will happen. We'll have to kill these 2 before the next big group spawns, which can delay your fractal run a little bit. Doesn't always happen, but that's what's happening right now. So once we finish those 2 off, you'll see we'll go back to the top of the hill. I'll hold my control key and you'll see the next wave is going to spawn. So this wave should complete this first event of the fractal. Overall, this one's pretty easy. Really the only thing that gives people trouble is the last boss, and that's where the reflex come in to play the most. You don't necessarily need it for this first part. But after we finish that event, the rest of the Grawl you see will just run down this hill with flaming boulders now. You can try and kill them. They'll drop loot still. But while you're running down this hill, obviously you want to be careful to not touch these flaming boulders. Just one hit by them will cause you to get downed, and then a second hit will kill you. But as long as you're paying attention, it's pretty easy overall. And if you have swiftness, you can actually run roughly the same speed as the boulders anyway, especially with leap skills like this. So we'll just run down this hill, make sure you don't get hit by the boulder. If you need to, it's fine, just stop and move to the right or the left. And at the very bottom, you see the boulder ahead of me kind of changes positions. So you want to be careful about that at the end. Alright, so down here is the next event. I'm actually going to switch to Hammer for this because Ring of Warding and the Mobilize from Hammer is pretty useful for this part. So what's going to happen is we are going to have to break the bubble on the champion. While we break the bubble, these veteran Grawl are going to spawn and they're going to run towards the 4 NPCs that we need to protect. If you lose all 4 NPCs, the event's going to fail and you're going to have to redo it. If you save all 4, then you get a bonus chest at the end. So obviously you want to try and save them. In the meantime, you can see I put a target on the champion. It just makes it easy to pick up a boulder and quickly target him with T or whatever key you use. And we're going to need to throw 8 of these boulders, that fall from the ceiling occasionally. Usually we'll just have our Mesmers or Guardians do that while the warriors stay on the veterans that spawn. Obviously they do the most damage, so they help kill it the quickest. And besides the mobilizes and like the Ring of Warding, any cripples, which are both on the warrior greatsword and the warrior axe, help as well. So we're just going to get 2 more boulders, it looks like, and then we'll be done with this event. It's pretty quick overall. If you have proper DPS, it's pretty easy, because the 2 warriors themselves, at least in our group, can do the veterans themselves if they had to. So once we break that shield, we'll have to fight the champion. So he'll just walk down this pathway. You can move a bit back to pull him out into the open, and then if any of the veterans are remaining from the previous event, you just want to kill them because they'll start attacking you now and they'll do damage. So you see the warriors are finishing off the veteran behind us. As far as the boss goes, so he only has 3 attacks. He has a projectile, which is negated by these reflects. If you go into melee range too close, he's going to do a spin, which knocks you back and reflects projectiles. And then his last attack is pretty much like the Elementalist Earth attack, where he puts a ring around him and he will charge up. When a ring of stones gets to the edge of the red circle, the whole red area will explode with stones, which will pretty much insta-down you. So that's this attack right here. And then you also saw throughout the fight he'll get a shield. You just need to throw 1 rock to break it. If there's no rocks up, then eventually it will break naturally. And here we'll just time warp to quickly finish this event, so we just have to go through one of his shield phases. But you saw max melee, so what max melee range is you can still hit the enemy with your melee attacks, but it's not going to auto attack for you. So usually your melee attacks will have a red bar underneath it, but you can still click it to hit the mob. So that's what we did there to not get hit by a spin attack, which knocks you back when you're too close in melee range. Alright, so at this point you saw I equip my Greatsword again and I'm putting on Shield of the Avenger. You're going to want Greatsword specifically for the pull, and then a lot of reflect or projectile absorption uptime for the final boss. The reflects aren't necessarily for the boss himself, but it's for the elemental adds that spawn every 25% of his health, which I'll talk about more when we go over the boss. And then for my third skill, I like using Retreat for the extra Aegis, which can help block an Agony arrow or help you res someone, so you don't need to get up and dodge that arrow. You do want a ranged weapon as well for both Guardian and Warrior. The Mesmer can go in and melee a bit more, but you don't want the full group to melee just because he's going to do some attacks in melee range that are going to negate a lot of your melee damage by forcing you to dodge or get out of melee range. So as far as the boss, he has 4 attacks. The first one you saw there, he shoots an arrow, which is his agony attack. Once you get familiar with his animations, it's pretty easy to dodge them. You can also max range and just strafe back and forth. His second attack is this firestorm, which he will cast on one person at range. A lot of times I won't use my evade unless I know I won't get targeted or hit by the agony arrow, because sometimes if you evade out of that firestorm, you may not have endurance, or you may be in that phase in between dodges where you can get hit by the agony arrow, which does quite a bit more damage than the firestorm itself. Then you'll see here at every 25% the boss is going to go into an invulnerable shield form. You need to hit this shield enough times to break it. Once it breaks, he's going to go into a berserk status, so you want to get out of melee range. This is where you're going to use your Wall of Reflections as well, which is going to negate the damage from his Agony arrow, and it's also going to negate the damage from these elementals, which spawn when he goes into that shield. So by having 2 guardians, it does make this part quite a bit easier. I do realize that a group comp that doesn't have a lot of reflects is going to make this part much tougher. So this is one of the fractals that is heavily dependent on how many reflects you have. But every 25%, so you're just going to do that and then obviously repeat. So I went over his 2 ranged attacks, which are the Firestorm and the Agony arrow. If you are in melee range, he's going to do 2 different dive attacks. The first one's just going to be a big red circle. It does less damage, but it'll knock you back. His other attack, it won't put a red circle on the ground while he is diving into the air. What that one does is when he reaches the ground, he's going to cast a bunch of fire bolts, I guess, which are going to leave red circles on the ground for maybe 5 seconds. That one does a lot of damage, so you do not want to be close to him or stand in those red circles while they're on the ground. And then outside of that, obviously the only attack that's going to hit you while we have our Wall of Reflections up and our melee cleaving down these elementals is his Firestorm. So if someone does go down like that, just have them rally off an elemental. They should be able to rally, assuming you're doing good DPS before they die. And then again, another 25% on this phase. As far as the rotation goes during his invulnerable phase, I haven't talked about that yet, but what we do is when he first goes into the bubble, everyone wants to get into melee range. The Mesmer is going to put feedback up to protect against the elementals. During that period, one of the Guardians wants to use his Shield of the Avenger, which will negate all the damage while the shield is up. Once the elemental comes out of his shield, you want to dodge back once to get out of melee range. That's when one Guardian will put his Wall of Reflection up first. You'll DPS him down, time it, and then the second Guardian can put his wall up. A guildie in my guild, Kind Buds, actually came up with a little unique, saying, which is you want to bust his balls and then retreat with walls. So that's basically what we do during his invulnerable phase. And then outside of that, you'll see for the last 25%, I'll go into melee. His first melee attack is that dive bomb, which created the red circle. And then his second attack, you'll see he'll fly up into the air and come back down and throw some fire bolts, which will create the red circles on the ground as well, so just don't stand in those or get hit by the attack. But besides that, hopefully this guide helped you out, and thanks for watching.